Today on Locked On Canadiens, it's the last mailbag before the regular season starts. So, how do we spend it? We talk about line combinations, we talk about a nuclear rebuild, and of course, we talk about Pokemon.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1384 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for tuning in and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that ensures you don't miss an episode and it supports us here on the show. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as That Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined as I always am by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, I believe that I'm calling it. This is the last off-season episode of Locked On Canadiens before the 25-26 season starts. Because next week we have games. On Monday we will be breaking down a week of preseason game schedule. We did it. It's over. We're out of the darkness.
A real game.
As real as NHL preseason gets, but real is. I think that's fine. They are real players who are playing a real game. How are you doing?
I'm emotional. I'm feeling very emotional. So before we started recording, I watched Nick Suzuki do an interview entirely in French. It was a very primitive French. It was clearly prepared. He looked like he was expecting the questions. But the effort, I don't know. There was something about it that just like my heart just grew. I love this team so much. So then I I followed that up by watching a bunch of other reels that the Montreal Canadiens had posted. So I'm saturated with Montreal Canadiens content right now. And I'm just so excited for this team.
Well, why don't we start there then? Because we did get a question from our buddy Kay of Game Over Montreal, who asked, how great of a choice was Nick Suzuki to be the Habs captain, and why is he perfect, and why am I going to cry about it? I think you've explained it pretty well, right?
Yeah, I think the thing about Nick Suzuki that we always say is that he understands the assignment. He was appointed captain very young. And that it was a huge responsibility on his shoulders. The way he's embraced the city is incredible, but a lot of it has to do with what's going on in the room, right? Like, this is a tight-knit group. Every time you turn around, you hear these guys play for each other. This is a tight-knit group. We're a tight-knit group. The guys, we couldn't wait to see each other on the, all you hear about. Where does that come from? It comes from the leadership. Who's the leader? It's Nick Suzuki. He sets an example for everybody. He's just somebody who's just very smart, intelligent, and there's something about him is he's not all over the place. He's a very quiet guy. He leads by example. He's vocal when he needs to be. I think a lot of things about him, he's accountable, right? He's definitely disciplined. He's definitely understands what it means to be part of this franchise. And to think that it was kind of a coin toss when Montreal traded with Vegas and we didn't know who was coming back the other way. Could have very easily not been Nick Suzuki. So yes, Kay, I understand why you're about to cry about it, because I also want to cry about it.
Yeah, I think I think it's an MO for the Canadiens, but certainly in my lifetime watching the team where the captain is a very calculated person. It's a calculated leader. They don't necessarily, I said a while ago that Nick Suzuki wasn't very intense, and I think people were like, what do you mean he's not intense? Look at him play. That's not what I meant. I meant like yelly, screamy guy in the locker room, right? And not intense to like the level that Shea Weber was intense, right? But he was, very quiet, reserved in public. Like, it was very much, he understands the honor that it is and the responsibility that he has to be the captain of the Canadiens. So the fact that he did an interview in French. Yes, it was prepared. It doesn't matter. The point is that he's making an effort to that part of the fan base that I see you and I want to be able to interact with you. Like, I want you to know that we understand how important that is for this franchise. That's what matters here. Listen to Kent Hughes speak in French. Like, I thought it was funny that Nick Suzuki, like the second thing that he said, he very much pulled a Kent Hughes where he just threw the word fans in there because he didn't like. It was very funny for that to happen.
Yeah. Obviously, like, you can use fans in French, but like, it's partisan. It's very much like, I mean, that's how I mostly speak French. That's how Mike Matheson speaks French.
Sure.
But there was something about it, like the effort that he made. I think he's been captain now for 3 full seasons, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to be his 4th. So I think so. I think my math is right on that one, but you can correct me. There's just, I don't know. There's just, he grew up so fast. He's like
Yeah.
one of the team dads now.
Yeah,
Even
no,
though he's
totally.
still like 26, 27 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. I think 25 or 26. He's still just hovering in there.
Yeah.
Hey, let's stick with Nick Suzuki. Let's look at the first line. David De Silva asks, would it be crazy to break up the first and third line from last year to balance out the team and put players, quote, in their chair? I love using the Martyism. You're correct. That is the right way to look at this. The first line, Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Demidov. Size and defense to insulate Demidov. Demidov is skilled enough to play top pairs. Second line, Caulfield, Doc, Bolduc. Free Doc from the burden of being the F1 and goal scorer on his line. Line A, Newhook, Anderson, speed and size to free up space for Line A. And Galley, Evans, Kapanen, or anyone else, balance of skill and grit. First of all, let's talk about breaking up the first line. Like, is that something you have an appetite to do on September 19th?
No. It was so good in the playoffs. It was incredible in the 30 last games of the regular season. I'm not doing it right away. I totally understand though. The chair, I love that experiment. I love that thought experiment, right? Like putting every player in their chair. But that line was just so good. You cannot break it up unless and until it stops performing. There is an injury, which knock on wood, no juju, no bad jujus. I'm not inviting that. Or somebody on another line steps up to the point where they deserve that spot on that first line. You experiment with that. I don't break it up right now. And I'm not saying that I never break it up. I'm just saying right now on September 19th, that is very far from what I would want to do.
Yeah, yes, I agree with you. I think going into the season, that is your alpha line. Like those, they proved in the playoffs. Yes, they got beat by Washington, but statistically, you look at how that line performed, they ate Washington's lunch. Like it wasn't close when they were on the ice. Problem is the Canadiens didn't have the depth to do that throughout their lineup. I do think eventually that spot, Slavkovsky's spot or Caulfield's spot on that first line
Goes
is
to
Demidov's to have.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time, in my opinion.
He's too talented.
Yeah, you're not gonna if he hits the heights we're expecting him to hit, he's not a second line player. Like it makes sense to move him up, and then you have a luxury second line where Cole Caulfield, there's your Slavkovsky is on your second line. Like you're laughing. Like that's an incredible place to be in for the Montreal Canadiens. So I'm with you. I'm not touching the Boy Genius line at this moment. That could change. We might get to a point where maybe that second line is struggling at some capacity, and Marty goes, we have to give the second line something else, and maybe that opens up a door on the first line. But I think going into next year, you have all of your first line returning. They all have to stay on the same line as far as I'm concerned.
At least to start, you give them a few games and then you see what you do after that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do one more here. Victor G from TikTok. If you could choose 8 players on the team to never get injured in a season, who would they be?
I always want your number one goalie. So no matter who it is, right now it's Sam Montembeault. Your number one goalie, you never want an injury to that guy, right? But sure. If we're going specifically with the Montreal Canadiens, let's say Samuel Montembeault, right? We start with that. You want Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Juraj Slavkovsky always to remain together. That's 4 now. Yep. You definitely cannot afford an injury to Ivan Demidov. His development is too crucial, and he's going to provide so much scoring. So now I've got 5. I got to throw some defensemen in there. Lane Hudson, Noah Dobson, and Caden Gooley.
Yeah, I think Caden Gooley for me was the one I was going to emphasize because last year the Canadiens did okay and made the playoffs after losing him for a long period of time, and he has, he keeps getting these weird injuries. Last year's injury was especially weird. But I think for me, like if they were to get a full season out of Caden Gooley, I can only imagine that helps them just keep pace the entire year, and they're not going into that last game of the season expecting Caden Gooley to help them get her done, as Caden Gooley said. Against Carolina, they're in a more comfortable spot with him on the team throughout the year. So yeah, I agree with that. I might throw Line A and Doc in there. just because I feel bad that they're always hurt, and maybe we could just finally maybe this is the only way they can't get hurt is if we put a protective spell on them via this question. So I'm putting that out into the world. All right, we'll leave that there. When we come back, we've got more questions. We'll talk about Joe Veleno. We'll talk about the option of a nuclear rebuild, and like I joked about before, we'll do some Montreal Canadiens as Pokemon, and we'll get into all that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Look, this is our Friday episode. You have a few more days before Sunday. Big kickoff, lots of games going on. I love using FanDuel because it lets me play how I want to play on those busy Sundays. I love the anytime touchdown props, prop bets before the games. I love to parlay a bunch of those together and see who hits and who doesn't. It also just makes keeping an eye on my fantasy team more exciting and easier to access. It's quick, easy, and it just adds a little bit more juice to Sundays. So you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, we're back. Let's start with the Pokemon one here. This comes to us from Kyle Roberts, who we will get to another question from Roberts, comma Kyle, in just a moment. Which Pokemon, any generation, doesn't have to be a starter, do you think each player would pick as their starter / partner Pokemon? A Monty Munchlax combo is my 2 cents. I like that question. I'm going to change it slightly, in that I had a bunch of Pokemon packs sitting around, and I've opened one. Laura knows next to nothing about Pokemon, which I think is going to make this better. We are going to show Pokemon, and Laura and I are going to pick which Canadiens player would take this Pokemon as, yes, this one's mine, or is this Pokemon in some respect. Do you understand the rules of this game, Laura?
I do. I understand.
All right, so I've opened the pack already. Our first Pokemon here is Phoebus. I'm showing Phoebus on camera. It's like some kind of skull-looking fish. Who takes the skullfish, Laura?
Who takes the skullfish? I think Jake Evans.
Yeah, that seems cool.
Yeah,
that seems right.
Yeah.
I would say that's a Jake Evans Pokemon. The next one is Dottler. He's this little like bug that is also kind of like a robot.
Mm-hmm. Well, they call Lane Hudson a bug, and he's kind of a robot. He's like super hockey, like he's a hockey robot.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. This one is Applin. It's literally an apple if it was a monster. I don't know what to make of
an apple. Like, what's good for you? Who's like, oh, Cole Caulfield.
Cole Caulfield is a small apple child. I think that's fair. Yeah. That's a good fit. Zubat. Who is a Zubat?
Ooh. So who's got a big wingspan? Does Mike Matheson have a big wingspan?
Maybe Caden Gooley.
Caden Gooley, yeah.
I think Caden Gooley would be a bat. Yeah. If he was Pokemon, he'd be Zubat. This one that coming up is Toadscruel. This is a mushroom squid type thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm reading Brendan Gallagher.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Did we already do Brendan Gallagher? No.
I don't think so. No. Yeah. I think I'm getting Jaden Struble for some reason. Give me Jaden Struble on the very long-armed octopus. Okay, so we have an evolution here. This is a Golbat, so he is bigger Zubat. So I'm going to say if Zubat was Caden Gooley, this is Arbor Jacki. That's what I'm going to say. He's just bigger and meaner. I think that's probably fair. Typhlosion. It's a big fire type Pokemon.
That looks like Yuri Slafkovsky to me.
1,000% that's Yuri Slafkovsky. No question. That was yes.
He's in your face screaming.
Yeah, 1,000%. This one is Zorora. Like a cat with electric powers.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say Nick Suzuki because he's the most cat-like person on this team.
Yeah. And going by the original question, if Nick Suzuki had to have a Pokemon, he's the main character. He gets Pikachu. Like I don't make the rules. Like Nick Suzuki is the protagonist in this story. Yes. He gets Pikachu. That's how it works. And the last one is Mag Cargo. He is a lava snail of some kind. You know what? This is David Savard. I know he's not on the team anymore. This is David Savard.
Yeah. He wants to
Um,
be on the team still. He showed up to the golf tournament, man. He's like this man is like still a Montreal Canadian. They
they
just
had
don't
him in
pay him
goalie
anymore.
pads this summer. Dude just wants to be here. Like you
Yeah.
have no choice but to respect it if you
They
are.
gotta give him a job, man. They really do. They gotta find a job for this man.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll stick with Kyle Roberts here. This is a question from last week that we missed, so thank you for your patience, Roberts brothers and cousin, because this email is just from or just to hello Ian, Laura, Jordan, Nicholas, and our cousin Aiden. Yes, there are more of us. You guys are just making more Roberts brothers. I know this is your cousin, but that's a Roberts brother now. I don't make the rules. Who on the team other than Lane Hudson are mama's boys? Who's a mama's boy on this team, Laura?
Oh wow. You know what? I feel like it's probably someone like Arbor Jackai, like someone you wouldn't
1000%.
associate with it, but like he's definitely a mama's boy for sure. For
I
sure.
believe that. I
Yeah.
believe that a lot.
Yeah.
Cole Caulfield, I also just believe, but that's like the same vein as Lane Hudson, I think.
Yeah.
I also think that Sam Montembeau loves his mom very much.
Sam Montembeau is like he's super respectful and like he defers to his mom like 100%.
Yeah, Sam
He's calling
Montembeau
her
calls his
every
mom
day.
twice a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's calling her all the time. He's driving her to her medical appointments. He's definitely a mama's boy.
Follow up on this. Whose grandma do you think makes the best food, and what's their signature dish?
Oh. Hmm.
The challenging one.
It is a challenging one because I'm thinking like who on this team has a nonna? Maybe Joe Veleno?
Probably.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. Joe Veleno
Yeah.
definitely has a nona.
And the
1000%.
the 7 fish thing that like Italians do at Christmas, like that's the thing she
Or
makes.
just the Sunday gravy that's been sitting on the stove for 8 hours. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the one. Yeah. Thank you, Roberts brothers. You are the mascots for our program, so we appreciate you guys always
Roberts
rating.
Brothers, you should either like start a podcast or like a
Yeah,
reality show or something like that. We want more content from you.
yeah, I agree. I think we need that co-signed here. Locked On Canadiens. Extend the cinematic universe. We need to keep this thing going. Let's go to one real quick one here from Hockey Freak. Leafs year this year?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
No.
It's going to be one of the years of all time for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So,
Yeah.
that's really all I have on that one.
Immediately no.
Yeah, immediately no. Let's do John C. Do you think Demidov will make any center on his line way better, or is that too much of an expectation? Personally, I think he will make anyone on his line look like a genius. I typically agree with that, but I do think there's a limit. Like, could he have made late stage Steve Ott look great?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Right?
No.
But thankfully,
Chris
that's
Kunitz, however.
yeah, for sure. but thankfully, that's not. Despite what you might hear from some Canadiens fans, that's not what Kirby Doc is.
No.
Kirby Doc is not late stage Steve Ott, which is a brand new sentence. No one's ever said that up until this exact moment. So I get to pat myself on the back for that one. Where do you think that limit is? Like, could he make a fourth line, like a good fourth line center look like a second line center? Could he do that?
He could, yes. Playing with him, yes. But he'd have to be like a good fourth line center, right?
Right.
That's why I think a lot of people are like, move Jake Evans up to the second line. I mean, he could do it. Is it optimal? No.
Yeah, and I just think you're in such a good place with Jake Evans that deep in the lineup. Like,
Yeah,
don't mess with it.
he's going to have to anchor a lot of the defensive play of the forward core. So,
Yeah,
you need him back there.
yeah. Especially like we don't know. We still the bottom six is still kind of a question mark. I'm very excited to see what the lines shake out to be at training camp because we'll learn more. Like we'll learn what Marty's initial thoughts are. What am I thinking first?
Yeah. Well, today the Canadiens posted like, lines and defensive pairings from the first day of training camp. And I was like, no other fan base in the league is like clamoring for this content.
Yeah.
That's us. It's us.
True.
It's us right
Yeah.
now. The one thing I do want to say is I saw a discussion about I think it was on Reddit. Someone was talking about putting Jake Evans, Brendan Gallagher, and Josh Anderson on one line and calling it the new dad line. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we do not do that because that's going to be the sleep deprived line. Like we need to
Yeah.
balance it out.
It's true.
Yeah.
Now, if they had all become fathers at the same time, you could have the dad strength line. Like that's
Yeah.
brand new dad strength. Like that,
Yes.
I think, is the right play. We
But there
might
were
have
some
missed
months
the
for
window
sure.
on that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
unfortunate.
Still happy for them.
Yeah, of course. I just wish it benefited us personally. No, I'm kidding. It's a joke. All right, we'll leave that there when we come back. We'll talk about Joe Veleno a little bit. I know I've teased it a bunch, but someone asked, hey, what about Joe? So we'll talk about him. And the idea of a nuclear rebuild is floated to us. And we'll get into all that in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. All right, we are back. Let's do this next one from our buddy Boondoggle on Bluesky. Which team will be the first one to sign one of the 2018 Team Canada Juniors players recently reinstated? We kind of know the answer to this. Yeah, it's Dave Pagnotta of the Fourth Period is reporting that Carolina is going to sign Michael McLeod, who was the only of the defendants charged with 2 crimes instead of 1. The rest were all charged with 1. He was charged with 2. They also inquired about Carter Hart. They were looking to add a goalie there. That to me smells like the Carolina Hurricanes see this as like a market inefficiency, which is kind of gross. Like, hey, look at all these free players that just showed up that nobody wants. Like, what? Well, we got to get in there. Well, why doesn't anyone want them, Eric? Like,
that's the thing. Yeah.
yeah,
It's why don't, and again, it's fully legal. The NHL laid out, right? Like we're considering this a suspension because their behavior is atrocious, even though they weren't actually they didn't get convicted of a crime. I think most of us are kind of in agreement that whether or not like there was a crime that was committed, all of the behavior at least is atrocious. So
yeah,
in a case like this, like when you're talking about, and specifically I'm looking at the Montreal Canadiens, right? Like they have such a tight knit group. They have such a positive environment in their dressing room. I think some teams don't care about that kind of stuff and they try to go for market inefficiencies or skills. And what ends up usually happening is things go wrong, things fall apart. Like I think one of the things the task for Montreal specifically is they have to protect the chemistry of this team at all costs because that's what has propelled them this far. Like they did not have the level of talent in order to do that last 30 games of the season last year, right? Like the results they got in that last 30 games plus that little stretch over Christmas, right? Like the 3 or 4 weeks, their results superseded their talent. And so I think they have to keep that in mind. And one of the things is how tight knit they were, how much they played for each other. That's how that 2021 team got to the Stanley Cup final, was the way like the locker room came together. It certainly wasn't the coaching. So
no,
Montreal really has to protect that at all costs. And I think it was kind of clear in that, how Kent Hughes called Ivan Demidov to ask about Joravsky, right? Like they care about that too.
yeah. I get like when do you remember when Marc Bergevin was interested in getting like Tony D'Angelo and I remember like Elliot Friedman talked about it on 32 Thoughts. And he was like, no, it was going to happen. And Tony D'Angelo didn't want to go to Montreal. And I like transcribed it on the internet and everyone got mad at me for some reason. I don't really remember why. But this sort of reminds me of that in that it's such like a negative locker room move to make. But Carolina is in a point where they're probably feeling a little desperate. Like they just can't get over the hump. They're like, we need to take advantage of anything we possibly can to get out of the position that we're in. But don't do that, man. Like there's no benefit to this. Like even if he comes in and he's an adequate hockey player, which we don't even know that he would be at this point in his career, you're tarnishing like respect that your fan base has for you, for just your reputation across the league. Like these things are not easy to undo. So it's disappointing, but not at all surprising. And it's not, this one team is the only bad one. This is a hockey problem, you guys. Like if it wasn't going to be Carolina, it was going to be somewhere else. Carter Hart would have probably signed by now, but he doesn't want to go to any of the teams that want to sign him.
Yeah.
So, like this is not this one bad team. It's a hockey problem.
It's a systemic problem. And I just want to like reiterate that just because something isn't illegal or Just because something is allowed does not mean it is a good idea.
Right. Yep. All right, let's get to this one from Spencer. Longtime listener here. Love the pod and all that you do. You both are the best. Thank you, Spencer. Listening to your Thursday episode got me thinking about Joe Veleno. When he came to Montreal over the summer, in my mind, that he was the immediate answer to third line center. Why do you think otherwise? I feel like it's a dead end trying to play Newhook at center, and whether Joe plays between Bolduc and Newhook or Gallagher and Anderson, he's a lock for the third line. What do you have against Joe? I hate him personally. No, I don't. I don't hate Joe Veleno personally. I think he's an unknown.
Yeah.
He's an unknown as a Montreal Canadian and generally as an NHLer. Like, there's not a huge body of work to go off of. You know, it's I'm curious to see where they put him in camp because it'll give us an indication of what they think he's going to be doing.
And that could be a positive market inefficiency that is being exploited, right? Like that could be something that the Habs just saw something in him that other teams weren't looking for. Not necessarily something that other teams didn't see, but other teams weren't particularly looking for. For me, that was the other reason too, is that like we don't know what he brings, and what we do know is like fourth line center depth, right? Like that's kind of based on his limited body of work. That's the impression we're getting.
Right. Yep. Totally. All right, we'll keep moving here. Next one from Bruce. Hello, big fan of the show. Hopefully I make this week's mailbag edition. You did. We have heard various versions of rebuild, including retooling, tweaking, major, minor rebuild, etc. Given the success of the Vegas Golden Knights and the relative success of the Seattle Kraken, what if there was a nuclear rebuild where a team can become an expansion and their rebuild would consist of something akin to an expansion draft? My question is this: when Buffalo inevitably takes advantage of this, what player would they nab for Montreal as someone unprotected? And who would Montreal pick from the released Buffalo roster? So we're imagining Buffalo just hits the ignition and goes kablooey, and they lose all of their guys. Who? Yes. Let's start with who we would want to take from Buffalo.
Tage Thompson.
Correct. I think that's really the only right answer.
That is, yeah. But I do want to say one thing though. When I read this email, I thought, like, how funny would it be if it's kind of like relegation where you're so bad for so many years in a row, where the NHL is just like, you got to start over. Like, we're forcing you to like rebuild. Like, that's a nuclear rebuild. Like, that's what I want, the element that I wanted to add. And so it wouldn't even be Buffalo taking advantage of it. It would be the NHL just being like, come on.
Dude, Buffalo, get it together. We're putting you on a performance plan. Figure this out. Like, that's what it would sound like.
Buffalo Pip. All right. So the Tage Thompson is coming here. How many players are they getting from Montreal?
Let's treat it like an expansion draft. So they're going to take one person from every team.
Okay. So,
and let's say like they can't take the top, 8 players on the team.
Okay. Well, obviously they're not touching Ivan Demidov, Nick Suzuki, Juraj Slavkovsky, Lane Hudson, Caden Gooley, Noah Dobson. How many do I got left?
That's fine. I think for me, like, if you've already got in mind that we would have to understand how the Canadiens would be picking in this. Like, if we just get the first pick and we walk up and take Tage Thompson, I think people would be upset. But like, if you're getting Tage Thompson, you can let Kirby Dach go. Yeah. And they might want a Kirby Dach type player. I think they also might want Sam Montembeault, because I don't know if you noticed the goaltending in Buffalo. We talked about it. They don't really know who their number one goalie is. So
I'm protecting Sam Montembeault in that case.
Yeah, well, they'd probably take Dobish. Dobish has shown at least proof of concept that he can be an NHL goaltender.
Yes. You can only protect one. You obviously go with your number one at the time. Unless you come to an agreement with the team, like with Carey Price and Carey Price's situation. I think it would be really interesting to see that. And I would hope that the drafting order doesn't go the same way as the lottery does. Maybe you got to be the best team to get the first pick.
Ooh, or do the gold plan where it's like the second you're eliminated, you start picking up points, and then that's how you win the lottery. I think that should be the way it works, quite honestly. All right, we got time for one more here from our friend Seamus. Hello, Ian and Laura. My name is Seamus. Last year, my father and I went to our very first NHL game in Las Vegas and watched the Habs win 3-2 on New Year's Eve. What a game to go to for your first NHL game. Congratulations to you for that. We had so much fun. We booked tickets to the game on December 18th at the Bell Center. We live in Nova Scotia and we'll be flying to Montreal a few days before the game. Laura, I know you live in Montreal and was wondering what are some fun things to do the days leading up to the game and also some restaurant recommendations. I was also wondering if practices are open to the public and if there's a chance of attending. Thank you very much. Love the podcast. Go Habs go. Thank you, Seamus. Laura, our travel guide, I will turn it over to you.
We'll start with the practice thing. Most of them are, but they're in Brossard, so you'd have to go to Brossard. You could probably take the REM there. Not super sure about the bus and all of that, but the REM should take you. And anyway, look it up on the transit app. But yes, if the practice is not open to the public, usually they will say it somewhere. But generally, people can go and watch them in Brossard. You can't watch a morning skate. You can't like congregate near the Bell Center and like ambush them as they come in. But you can definitely go to the practice in Brossard. If you are staying downtown, December 18th, like the one thing that I will say is like if you're Christmassy people, there's a Christmas market at Place des Arts, which is not too far. That's definitely like a fun Christmassy thing to do. In terms of stuff to do, definitely try and get a tour of the Bell Center, especially if this is your second ever game and you're a huge Habs fans. That's one of the things that I would recommend you do. I recommend that for all first timers. Like I did it like way into my fandom. I still thought it was pretty cool. And then like if you are in and around Montreal, there's not a whole lot going on in terms of festivals and stuff, but there's definitely lots of food and restaurants to check out. What I will do though is I'll make up a little list of my favorite places and I will share them with you, mostly because I can't think of them off the top of my head right now, and I was not thinking that we would have time for this question. So, but definitely I have a lot of recommendations all over the city. Maybe just let us know if you have any dietary restrictions or issues or no-nos.
The level of service with the end of that, Laura. Like we're like, what are your dietary restrictions? We're catering this for you, Seamus.
Because I want you to have a good time. And there are some
Right.
restaurants that I would absolutely recommend. I just don't want to recommend, like, let's say you never eat like raw fish. I'm not going to recommend my favorite sushi restaurant to you, right? So just tell us what you like and I'll tell you, and I'll give you the price ranges too. And I'll make a list that we can share with all our listeners.
Terrific. Awesome. Well, look, that's going to do it for us this week on the final off-season episode of Locked On Canadiens. You made it. You made it to your weekend. You made it to the preseason. Get ready. The games start next week. We'll be back next week to go through the preseason games at the beginning of the week, and we'll give you recaps after every game as well. You can follow us all over the internet, Locked On Canadiens, Bluesky, Instagram, and TikTok. You can email us, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. If you heard a question that you liked and you want to submit your own, send it to us, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We do a mailbag every Friday, so make sure you're participating. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.